Thank you very much. Kind of feel like I'm on The Price is Right here. So this is a big meaty topic. We'll focus at the very high level on the singular idea of design. It's important to consider the element of design when you're looking at implementing strategies, because that investment is going to equal the impact you have on your building and your organization. Before we jump into it, there's 4 topics I want to cover, but before we jump into it, I wanted to talk about what we're actually asking people to do. When people resist our organizational changes, our strategies are resisting to the change that goes with it. In order to get over that hump, we actually need to focus on a couple different things to bring them along with us instead of combating that change. The way that we do that is by focusing on their needs, their problems, and providing solutions to that. You've got a giant hole, we've got a puzzle piece that's going to slot in and solve the problems that you have and achieve our organizational results. So as I said, there's 4 key elements we'd like to consider while you're designing. The first one is going to be engagement. This is a twofold topic. First, we need to consider the engagement of the overall organization. But before we do that, we need to have engagement at that core level. Just like Jim Collins says in Good to Great, we got to have the right people on the bus in order to make the changes we need. So who do we need to consider in that core group? Obviously, we want to build in our decision makers. That's the leadership group that decides on the strategy, usually decides what our organizational goals are, but it's not just enough to stop there. We need to also consider our experts in the field, our staff members. These are the guys that can tell you what are our problems, what are our needs, and they'll most likely know the solutions to help position to it. By engaging them in your core group, you get the added bonus of engagement as they actually roll the program out as well. After that, it's important to consider who else you might want to pull in information from. Your partners in the industry is a great resource to reach out to. A lot of times, they're going to have the tools you'll need to implement, so you don't have to be stuck recreating the wheels. And this is vendors, this is distributors, a lot of time the industry itself. Last but not least, we also need to consider one key group, and that's your customers. Any organizational change we're making is affecting them. So we need to consider how this change is affecting the behavior, and in the end, we want to promote to them because this organizational change is going to bring new residents potentially to you as well. The second stage and the second thing to consider in the design period is going to be visioning. And here we're not talking about recreating the wheel and taking your organizational vision and changing it. We're just talking about complementing that. One of the activities we've done at Direct Supply is called the Merlin activity. And what this allows you to do is think in the future state, complementing your existing vision by developing milestones to say, this is what we had to do in order to achieve those results. By thinking in the future state, you have the great opportunity of getting rid of these naysayers, which can derail and debunk your visioning process. So really what we come out of this with is different milestones and goals, right? And we want to make sure we're not only identifying them, but identifying how will we market this to our organization? How will we market those goals to our residents? And lastly, when we achieve those, we all want to achieve that and celebrate the success we've created there. The third stage, what we're going to want to consider is going to be the tools needed to actually implement. So when designing, you want to think ahead to say, how are we going to track the results? How are we going to make sure the work is actually getting done? There's a variety of tools, and every individual strategy is going to take a different focus, but it's just important to consider what different key elements you're going to need. It could be workflows. How are we doing this from an organizational level? It could be checklists. How are we ensuring that the work is getting done at the communities themselves? And once we have those tracking tools, we need to make sure that we're also testing. And what that really means is at a micro level, we want to consider, is that work actually being done at the community? Are we efficient like we set out to be? Are we effective? Have we completed the work? At the macro level, we want to review with the organization to say, is this work actually helping us achieve those milestones? And are those milestones building up to that big organizational result we wanted to do? The last stage to consider is going to be rollout. And this is where we get back to that engagement we talked about early on. So when we're looking at rollouts, there's always going to be a couple things that you want to consider. Number one, there's the tool sets that you need. A lot of times this can be email messaging, it can be print material. What's the handout that people can have in their hands to take away and go back to their day-to-day jobs with? A lot of times the industry will be able to provide and support this for you, so that's why it's important to engage them early on and ask. The best way to roll out, though, is live and in person. And I'll give you 3 key kind of thoughts towards live rollouts. We want to make sure that we're doing and discussing. What I mean by that is we're telling people what we're doing at an organizational level so they understand the problems and the solutions we're providing for them. Even better than the discussion, though, is getting people up to do. And this is a key crucial part because we're all different types of learners, and the variety of us really learn with hands-on application. That's where we get the behavior to stick, right? It's teaching a man to fish rather than giving them to fish themselves. Last but not least, if we've done these 2 stages, the real value, the real key to provide is the debrief. Because let's be honest, folks, the learning, the education that goes forward, the change in behavior we want, that comes through discussing what was done. So if we've told them, we debrief it, we talk through together, that's the sure way to make sure that this organizational change sticks and you implement for success. So I want you to consider these 4 key elements in the design phase. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.